All this week here on Virginia This Morning, we're introducing you to boomers and shakers. These are people in our community who are working to make it better with grand and small gestures and who were chosen for recognition by Boomer Magazine. For a sixth year, CBS 6 is partnering with the magazine for this project. This year's honorees include Rosalind Watkins, president of the JHW Foundation. The organization is named after her stepson, John Henry Watkins III, who died in 2010 of an accidental overdose after struggling with addiction for several years. We welcome Rosalind Watkins here to our show. Good morning and congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm very flattered.
You're doing a lot of great work in the community. Unfortunately, this is a story that came out of tragedy in your family. Kind of tell us more about that.
It was difficult. Our son struggled with addiction for several years, and we, like most parents, went through a lot of, going treatment and recovery and into rehab and out, and he had been doing very, very well and had relapsed after his grandmother died unexpectedly and passed away just over 6 years ago.
So the process after that and the process through this has become very much a learning moment for you and your family, hasn't it?
Yeah, it really has changed my life in a lot of ways and a lot of the ways I look at things. But it's really helped me to, one of the things we looked at were kind of what we saw as gaps in the system when we were going through it, and Henry would go into rehab and we'd try to send him back to college, and he'd relapse because there were no support systems in place, and he kind of felt like he had to choose between going to college or staying sober. So
that transition for a lot of students, if they're struggling with something from high school into college and being on your own, is a very difficult time.
Yes, it is very difficult. It's the first time they're on their own and they don't have, the structure that they had in place with their families, and so there's a lot of ways things can go awry.
Now, the foundation, I understand, was really the idea of one of Henry's good friends.
Yes, it was Kevin Meyer, who Henry and Kevin had been friends since kindergarten. And Kevin actually approached us a few months after Henry passed away, and he wanted to help start something to help, honor Henry, and ask us if we wanted to do that. And so Kevin actually did all the paperwork, got the 501c up and running, and we've taken it from there.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things that you focus on is working with young people, usually between the ages of 14, 25 or so, because that is a very vulnerable time for them.
Yes, I know with Henry, it actually started in high school. He had a football injury and was prescribed painkillers, and for people who are kind of wired to addiction, some people, it's a disease and it affects them, and so he got hooked on Oxycontin and then struggled from there.
And that's one of the things you try to point out, is that this really is a disease. It's not a behavioral problem. It's a disease.
It is, and when we first started struggling with it, we did not understand that. It really took us a few years to accept that it really was something, within disease within the brain, and so we really try to emphasize that, and because there is treatment and there's a lot of success out there, but you have to get the right resources.
And one of the great resources that your foundation is offering now is a project called VCU Rams in Recovery. Tell us about that.
I'm very excited about that because that was really where we saw a gap, and Henry was at JMU and we would send him back and it didn't last very long. And so anyway, I met up with some people, one of Henry's counselors, and ended up working on this project team for VC Rams in Recovery. And I'm so excited about the program. It started just over 3 years ago. We had maybe a handful of students involved. Now we have 35 to 40. They just got approval for housing for next year, which is tremendous. Mm-hmm. And we've got a great support system in place. We've got a recovery clubhouse and a place where the kids come and hang out. They've got a number of programs each week, online, meetings on campus. So I'm excited to see where that's developed in such a short time.
What's some of the feedback that you've gotten from some of the children involved?
It's amazing. We had 12 students from the program graduate last year. Most of them had dropped out of school at one point, didn't think they could actually complete college, and then once they got into school. So they're, the people I've met through there are amazing. We helped one young man, his grades had gone below where he didn't qualify for financial aid anymore, and he was going to be a senior, and so we helped cover his tuition. And the note he wrote to me was just phenomenal. He couldn't believe somebody who he'd never met would just say, "Hey, I've got you covered." You know, took one phone call and here I am. So it really inspired him to go on and pursue his writing career, which is what he really wants.
And it must be very touching for you to know that you're making a difference.
That's the most important thing for me. When we started this foundation, I thought, God, if I can change one person's lives, you know, you become a member of the club that no parent wants to be. And now I see how many lives we've touched, and I see children graduating. You know, we had a guy speak at our oyster roast, and he's starting his own business now, and he's going back and finishing his degree, and that's what matters, is helping get people on track.
Well, we thank you for what you're doing in the community.
Well, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Rosalind Watkins, a Boomers and Shakers honoree. You can read profiles of all of this year's Boomers and Shaker honorees in the December-January issue of Boomer magazine. It's on stands at dozens of locations throughout the metro area. It's free right now.